Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Arrow episode 14 video. The reason I have a Vixen picture is because she's next week's episode. I'm just really excited about her. So here we go. Careful for spoilers if you haven't seen episode 14 yet. You guys might not be familiar with them, but the team that was blowing up buildings in this episode is actually called the Demolition Team. They're actually a group of villains from the comics, from the Green Lantern comics. The reason you probably never heard of them before is because they're a super minor group. They were hired to blow up Ferris Air a long time ago. They showed up again during the OMAC project storyline. They got offed, but then they came back briefly during Final Crisis. They're just like a really minor group of characters. There's Hard Hat, Jackhammer, Rosie, Scoop Shovel, and Steamroller. So I'm totally cool with whatever Arrow wants to do with them. I'm not expecting to see them again after this episode though. But in the larger context, I love the way the episode played with the idea of secrets, keeping secrets, coming clean about secrets. So let's do top 5 WTF, then I'll explain what's going on with Vixen. And there is a new round of the reverse flash ring giveaway. It's still going on. I started in my flash video. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. So number 5 WTF. Merlin is now officially on Team Damien Darhk. He's working with Hive. They have their secret volcano lair. Damien Darhk even kills someone through the TV in a classic James Bond move. He's totally a James Bond villain. How dare you insult my wife, sir? Hat tip to John Barrowman for making it through the entire episode, being in a really big scene with having almost 0 speaking lines. That's like going on vacation for an actor. That's like the easiest day ever. Number 4 WTF. Team Arrow repeatedly gets buildings dropped on them. I love the first one too. I wasn't really sure if Quentin was being shady because Laurel started questioning him like, why are you getting called out here? This is bogus. We find out it's the Demolition Team that's luring him there. They are working at the behest of Damien Darhk's wife. Although really she's working for Hive, so you could just say that they're working for Hive, even though she was the one calling the shots. The way they dropped that building on Thea too, that looks like so much fun. Actors can still get hurt doing stunts like that, even though a lot of that is made from really lightweight materials. It's just made to look heavy. They use sound effects, practical effects to make it look like an actual building is falling on you. And there was a whole lot of Thea in this episode. Onto my number 3 WTF. Oliver is actually a supporting character in this week's episode. I would argue that the other characters push him around more than he pushes them around. Like think of it this way, traditional Arrow season 1, Oliver has the list. He's like, this is what our mission's gonna be. He gets a little help from Felicity when he needs it, and there was actually a little Easter egg for their very first meeting ever. Oh, how romantic. The first time we ever met, you were asking me to crack a busted laptop. But in this week's episode, Oliver was kind of like a bystander, just walking around like, okay, I have to go do these things. And it was really Thea that was giving him all the instructions he needed. She was the one that followed the paper trail, learned about his son on her own. Felicity figures out they're going to bring down the building that the bait's going to be in. Even the fight scenes were weighted more towards the supporting characters, although technically they're not supporting characters. These other Team Arrow people, those are main cast. So even though the Stephen Amell Oliver character is like the lead character, it's his show, but you're always going to see times, especially going forward into future seasons, where they spend more time developing the cast around Oliver. Like Thea's a really smart person, but unless you show her doing smart things, figuring things out, the audience usually doesn't pick that up. Maybe an even better example would be like having a Cisco episode of The Flash where he learns about using his powers, he builds some stuff, does some cool things, and you only interact with Barry whenever he crosses paths with Cisco. But for the most of the episode, you're following other characters that are not Barry. Speaking of which, number 2 WTF, we have to talk more about Oliver's son. Thea figures out the secret that Oliver's been keeping, and she's totally on board with it. I love the way that she's always on Oliver's side. It's one of those impossible choices where it's like, do I choose my fiance or do I choose my son? At least from his perspective, if he comes clean about the secret, then he'll never be able to see William again. And if he tells his baby mama that he's Green Arrow, that brings her into this world of danger and he doesn't want to do that. So that's why in the episode they kept having Quentin have that conversation with him about Donna, like, maybe I should tell her the truth about what's going on with Hive. I want to keep her safe. Maybe I shouldn't tell her. He comes clean, and it goes really well. Felicity's mom totally understands, but just because it went really awesome for Quentin doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go the same way for Oliver. And they actually kind of answered that question with the promo for next week's episode, for the Vixen episode. Like, remember the mid-season finale where Oliver got the chance to do something different, the timeline changed, and he's like, this time I'm not going to tell Felicity because it completely blew up in his face during the first timeline when he was like, I have a son, and Felicity just flipped out. And finally, my number 1 WTF. Damien Darhk captures Oliver's son. Surprise, surprise, I have a new friend for you. His name is William. When he said William's mother asked him to take care of William for a while, I wondered what they did to her. Maybe they just intimidated her. Damien Darhk does seem very evil, but he has principles, so I don't think that he would kill William's mother, but I do think that he has her under threat of death. So the path is clear. Oliver's going to try and save his son, but I wonder what this is going to do for his relationship with Felicity, because she's going to learn about the son, and what this is going to do for his relationship with the baby mama, because she might learn about Green Arrow stuff. Even if Oliver saves the day, I don't think it would make her want to visit him more. Like, oh hey William, your father is a vigilante fighting crime. Why don't you go spend the night with him? I'm sure he's already made you a child-sized super suit and a bow and arrow. I know a lot of you are wondering about Connor Hawke things because Oliver's son is not going to be Connor Hawke, it'll be someone else. But I didn't know that they were going to bring his son back and use him as part of this plotline. I think it'll be interesting, but I don't think Arrow is so cruel that it would put a child in the grave. But I do like the idea that it kills the baby mama and then the child grows up as part of this broken home. In the same way Wally West comes from a broken home, that's usually how superhero and supervillain stories start. They come from this really terrible home life. One or more of their parents was killed in a tragic supervillain accident. Let me know in the comments though, what was your guys' favorite moment from the episode? And what do you think about Mr. Terrific making the technology to help Felicity walk again? Here's this chip. Wow, you are terrific. That may have been the first time someone called him terrific in an episode, but it was a pretty solid week. I feel like next week's episode though is going to be like the big comic book episode because they're going to have Vixen. So if the last 2 weeks of Flash was Escape from Zoom Mountain, think of Arrow doing its version of that next week when Vixen comes on, just to explain what's going on with Vixen in the live-action universe. Now, they did the cartoon. You may have seen the Vixen digital series. Maybe you didn't watch it. There were 6 5-minute episodes on the CWC.com. It was just meant to be an origin story for her. She'll continue to guest star on Arrow in future seasons, and she'll probably guest star on Legends of Tomorrow in a future season, maybe later this season too. They haven't said anything about the last couple of episodes of Legends of Tomorrow yet. Speaking of which, Legends, tomorrow, be sure to subscribe to get that video. Cisco is going to guest star. I don't know what he's going to be doing, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Remember, they have to rescue all those people from Vandal Savage, who is trying to make his own firestorm. While you guys wait for that video to post, you can click here for last night's episode of The Flash, and you can click here for my Guardians of the Galaxy 2 video. They just announced some new cast members, and it's going to be awesome. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.